The first thing I noticed at grandfather's funeral was how nobody looked at me. Not directly, anyway. Their eyes would slide past like I was a shadow on the wall, something unpleasant they'd rather forget. I sat alone in the back row of the funeral home, watching the Kennedy family's carefully choreographed grief unfold. My name is Penny, and I've spent most of my 26 years being the family's unwanted inheritance, the forgotten niece, passed around like a chain letter nobody wanted to receive, but felt obligated to deal with after my mother died and my father vanished. Such a tragedy, Aunt Laura whispered loudly enough for me to hear, dabbing at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Howard was such a pillar of the community. Uncle Ross wrapped an arm around her shoulders, his expensive suit creasing at the movement. He built everything we have from nothing, he announced to nobody in particular. A true self-made man. I remembered the last time I'd seen Grandfather Howard alive. It was 3 months ago at the annual Kennedy family Christmas dinner. He'd sat at the head of the table, silent and stern, while everyone else talked over each other about investments and vacation homes. When I'd gotten up to leave early, claiming a headache, he'd looked at me for just a moment. I could have sworn there was something in his eyes, regret maybe, or recognition. But then Carson had started loudly discussing his new Porsche and the moment vanished. Even Angelica the cat has a bigger claim on the will than Penny, Carson had joked that night, earning snickers from his parents. I'd pretended not to hear, like always. The funeral service ended with a recording of Amazing Grace playing through hidden speakers. As people stood and gathered their belongings, Mary Riley appeared at the front of the room. The family lawyer's grey hair was pulled back in a severe bun, her face as expressionless as a statue. "The reading of the will shall commence in 30 minutes at my office," she announced. "All named beneficiaries must attend." Cousin Zoe caught my eye from across the room and gave me a small, uncertain smile. She'd always straddled the line between family loyalty and basic human decency. I nodded back, but didn't smile. Years of experience had taught me that any kindness would be reported back to Aunt Laura and transformed into ammunition. "You're not seriously coming to the reading, are you?" Carson appeared beside me, his cologne overwhelming. "I mean, what's the point?" "Mary invited everyone," I said quietly, gathering my purse. He laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. "Come on, Penny, you know how this works. Grandfather barely acknowledged you existed. What makes you think he'd leave you anything?" "Leave her alone, Carson," Zoe said, but her voice was small. "I'm just being realistic," he shrugged. No point in getting her hopes up. I walked to my car alone, the spring air crisp against my face. The drive to Mary's office was short, but my hands shook slightly on the steering wheel. Not from hope. I'd learned to kill that particular emotion years ago, but from something else. Anticipation, maybe, or dread. The conference room at Riley and Associates was all mahogany and leather, with a view of downtown through floor-to-ceiling windows. I took a seat at the far end of the table, away from the cluster of Kennedys who filed in, talking amongst themselves. Mary entered last, carrying a thick manila envelope and several folders. She arranged them precisely on the table before her, then looked up at the assembled family with cool professionalism. "Before we begin," she said, "I must remind everyone that the terms of Howard Kennedy's will are legally binding and were verified while he was of sound mind. Any attempts to contest or challenge the will must be done through proper legal channels." Uncle Ross waved a hand dismissively. Yes, we understand the legalities. Let's get on with it." Mary began reading. Properties were divided, stock portfolios allocated, specific items bequeathed. With each name called, I watched my relatives' faces. Some smiled smugly, others frowned in disappointment. Carson practically preened when he heard about his inheritance of grandfather's vintage car collection. My name wasn't mentioned. Just as Uncle Ross was starting to stand, clearly ready to leave, Mary pulled out a sealed envelope marked "Private to be read separately." "There is one final matter," she said, her voice cutting through the rustling and murmuring. a special provision that Howard insisted be addressed last. The room grew still. I felt everyone's attention shift, like a current in the air. For the first time that day, they were all looking directly at me. Mary broke the seal on the envelope with deliberate precision, removed a single sheet of paper, and adjusted her glasses. The silence stretched thin as spider silk, ready to snap. Regarding the matter, she read, of the Howard Kennedy Family Trust, established in the name of Penelope Marie Kennedy. $4.2 million, Mary said, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. To be held in trust for Penelope, with immediate access upon the reading of this will. The room froze. I could hear the soft hum of the air conditioning, the tick of an antique clock on the wall, even my own heartbeat. Then, like a dam breaking, chaos erupted. "This is ridiculous!" Uncle Ross shot to his feet, his face turning an alarming shade of red. "There must be some mistake." "I assure you there isn't," Mary replied, her tone glacial. "The trust was established 3 years ago, with very specific terms and conditions." Aunt Laura's perfectly manicured hand clutched at her pearl necklace. She must have manipulated him somehow. Howard would never... "I barely saw him," I said quietly, but everyone heard me. "You made sure of that." "You ungrateful little parasite." Laura spun toward me, her composure cracking. "We took you in when no one else would. We fed you, clothed you, made me sleep in the laundry room," I finished for her. My hand slipped into my purse, finding my phone. One quick tap, and the recording started. Carson slammed his hands on the table. "This is insane. I'm his grandson, his actual blood, and she gets more than all of us combined? The terms are quite clear," Mary continued, unruffled. She lifted another document. "There are, however, certain conditions that must be maintained for all beneficiaries to retain their inheritances." "What conditions?" Ross demanded. "Any attempt to defame, slander, or otherwise harm the primary beneficiary's reputation or well-being results in immediate forfeiture of inheritance rights." The words hung in the air like smoke. I watched understanding dawn on their faces, followed quickly by horror. My phone continued recording in my purse. "You can't be serious," Carson laughed, but it was hollow. "So what, we have to play nice with Penny or lose everything?" "Precisely." Mary's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. "She's destroying this family." Laura's voice rose hysterically. "First, she weasels her way into Howard's good graces, and now she's holding us hostage." Ross grabbed his wife's arm. "Laura, be quiet." "No, I won't be quiet. That girl has been nothing but trouble since the day her mother died. We should have sent her to foster care when we had the chance." Carson lunged across the table, reaching for the trust documents in Mary's hands. His movement knocked over her coffee cup, sending dark liquid spreading across the papers. "Mr. Kennedy," Mary stood, her voice sharp as a whip, "I strongly advise you to control yourself, or I will be forced to call security." "This isn't over," he snarled, looking directly at me. "You think you can just take what's rightfully ours?" I met his gaze steadily. "I didn't take anything. Grandfather gave it to me." "Because you manipulated him, you little—" "That's enough," Mary's voice cracked like thunder. "I am officially documenting these outbursts. Any further threats or accusations will have serious legal consequences." I stood slowly, gathering my purse. The weight of my phone inside felt like a shield. "I think I should go." "Penny," Zoe called out softly. "Wait." "Let her go," Ross cut in, his businessman's mask sliding back into place. "We'll handle this through proper channels." I walked to the door, feeling their eyes burning into my back. Just before I left, I turned. "You know what's funny? All you had to do was be decent human beings. That's all the condition required. And you couldn't even manage that for 5 minutes." The door closed behind me with a soft click. In the elevator, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. My hands were shaking as I stopped the recording and saved it. Outside, the spring afternoon had turned grey, threatening rain. I made it to my car before the first drops fell, mixing with the tears I hadn't realized were running down my face. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Mary. "Come see me tomorrow morning. There's more you need to know." I started my car, the engine's hum drowning out the sound of raised voices now echoing from the building's entrance. In my rearview mirror, I could see Carson storming toward his Porsche, kicking a trash can as he passed. Another text came through, this one from Zoe. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea they would react like that." But she did know. They all knew exactly who they were, who they'd always been. They just never thought there would be consequences. I pulled out of the parking lot just as the rain began in earnest, washing away the last traces of the funeral day. In my purse, my phone held the recording that would change everything. Their true faces, finally captured in their own words. Grandfather's voice echoed in my memory from that last Christmas dinner. I thought he wasn't paying attention, but now I wondered if he'd seen everything all along. Maybe this was his way of finally making things right, or maybe it was his way of giving me the power to make things right myself. I sat in my small apartment that evening, listening to the recording for the third time. Their voices filled my living room, angry, entitled, revealing every ugly truth I'd lived with for years. My hands hovered over the email draft I'd composed, the audio file attached and ready to send to both Mary and the trust administrator. A memory surfaced, sharp and clear as broken glass. I was 14, standing in the school parking lot while Carson and his friends laughed from inside his new car. "Hey everybody, look! The charity case needs a ride home." He'd driven off, splashing mud on my shoes, leaving me to walk 3 miles in the rain. My finger clicked send before I could second-guess myself. The response came faster than I expected. Mary's email was brief. "If this audio is what I expect, their inheritance may be terminated by week's end." I closed my laptop and walked to the window. The city lights blurred through the rain-streaked glass, and for a moment, I felt dizzy with the weight of what I'd just done. My phone buzzed. Aunt Laura's number. Decline. Another call. Uncle Ross. Decline. A text from Carson. "You better watch your back, you little snake." I screenshot the message and forwarded it to Mary. Her response was immediate. "Documentation received. This constitutes another violation." Sleep didn't come easily that night. I kept seeing their faces, hearing their voices. Not just from today, but from years of calculated cruelty. The time Aunt Laura accidentally donated my mother's jewelry to charity. The Christmas Uncle Ross announced they were upgrading my bedroom into a home gym, moving me to the laundry room. Morning brought a flood of notifications. Carson had posted a rant on social media. Betrayed by my own family. Grandfather manipulated on his deathbed. The truth will come out. I smiled despite myself. He was doing my work for me. My phone rang. Mary again. "Come to the office immediately. There are developments." The law office looked different in morning light, less intimidating. Mary sat behind her desk, a stack of papers arranged precisely before her. "Your cousin's social media tantrum has attracted attention," she said without preamble. "Several news outlets have reached out. Additionally, the trust administrator has reviewed your recording. And the violations are clear. Multiple parties explicitly threatened and defamed you, violating the core condition of the trust." She adjusted her glasses. "Ross, Laura, and Carson's inheritances are being suspended pending final review." My throat felt tight. "All of it?" "Everything specified in the will. Properties, investments, vehicles." She paused. "There's something else. Your grandfather left you a letter. I was instructed to give it to you only after the others showed their true colors." She handed me an envelope, yellowed with age. My hands trembled as I opened it. "My dearest Penny," it began. "If you're reading this, then they've finally revealed themselves to the world, the way they've always revealed themselves to you. I was a coward in life. I saw how they treated you, but I stayed silent, telling myself it wasn't my place to interfere. In death, I hope to give you what I never could in life, the power to stand up for yourself. Tears blurred my vision. I had to stop reading. There's more, Mary said softly. The family home, he left it in the trust as well. You have full control over its disposition. A knock at the door interrupted us. Zoe stood there looking uncertain. Can we talk? She asked. Please. Mary raised an eyebrow at me. I nodded and she left us alone. Zoe sat across from me, twisting her hands in her lap. I didn't know about any of this, about how bad it really was. You were there, I said quietly. You saw everything. I know. I was scared. If I stood up to them, they'd turn on me too. She met my eyes. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I understand why you're doing this. I'm not doing anything, I replied. They're doing it to themselves. My phone buzzed again. Another social media notification. Carson was live streaming now, ranting about family loyalty and betrayal. Each word was another nail in their coffin. They're going to lose everything, Zoe whispered. I thought about the laundry room, about walking home in the rain, about years of calculated cruelty disguised as charity. No, I said, picking up my grandfather's letter again. They already lost everything that mattered. They just didn't know it until now. As Zoe left, Mary returned with more papers requiring my signature. Through the window, I could see dark clouds gathering again. Somewhere across town, my aunt and uncle were probably realizing their bank accounts were frozen. Carson was likely still raging online, digging their graves deeper with every post. I touched the letter in my pocket, feeling its weight, not just of paper, but of validation. For the first time in my life, someone had seen me, really seen me, and now, finally, everyone else would too. The family estate loomed before me, its manicured lawns and stone facade a monument to everything I'd been denied. Mary had given me the security codes and keys, saying there was something else I needed to collect. Another letter, hidden in grandfather's study. The house felt different now, knowing it was under my control. My footsteps echoed through empty halls that had once been filled with voices telling me I didn't belong. Hello, I called out, though I knew no one would answer. The cleaning staff had been dismissed after the funeral. Grandfather's study was exactly as he'd left it. Dark wood paneling, leather-bound books, and the lingering scent of pipe tobacco. I ran my fingers along his desk, remembering the few times I'd been allowed in here. My phone buzzed. A news notification. Local business mogul's family in turmoil. Inheritance dispute turns ugly. Below it was a screenshot of Carson's latest social media rant, disinherited by my own dying grandfather. The truth about family betrayal and manipulation. Full story coming soon. I clicked the link. The comments were already flooding in. Sounds like someone's just bitter they didn't get what they wanted. Wait, isn't this the guy who posted about buying his third Porsche last month? Rich people problems, lol. A text from Mary appeared. Ross is attempting damage control. Don't respond to any media inquiries. I opened grandfather's desk drawers one by one until I found it. An envelope marked, "For Penny, when you're ready." My hands shook as I opened it. Penny, by now you've seen what they really are. I was too cowardly to fight them while I lived. Every time I saw you at family gatherings, quiet and hurt but never broken, I wanted to speak up. But I was a coward, wrapped up in maintaining peace in a family that didn't deserve it. You reminded me so much of your mother. She was the only one who ever stood up to them. When she died, I watched them twist her memory, turn her into a cautionary tale. They did the same to you, tried to make you small, invisible. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I hope this gives you the power to do what I never could. Show them that actions have consequences. There's more you should know. In the safe behind my portrait, Code 132435. You'll find documents about Ross's business dealings. Use them if you need to. I couldn't stand the noise of the liars, but I always heard you. Howard. The portrait swung away from the wall easily, revealing the safe. Inside, I found a thick folder labeled Ross, Private. My phone rang. Uncle Ross's number again. This time I answered. "We need to talk," he said, his voice strained. "This has gone too far." "Has it?" I flipped through the folder, seeing bank statements, offshore account numbers, suspicious transactions. "Look, we can work something out. Come to the house tonight." "Your house? Or the one that's now in my trust?" Silence. Then, "You don't want to make an enemy of me, Penny?" "No, Uncle Ross, you don't want to make an enemy of me." I held up a particularly interesting document, especially given what I'm looking at right now. "What are you talking about?" "Let's just say grandfather kept very detailed records of your creative accounting." The sharp intake of breath told me everything. "Those are private family matters." "Not anymore." I tucked the folder into my bag. "Everything's different now." "Penny, please." I hung up. Another news alert popped up. Family feud escalates. Social media storm surrounds inheritance dispute. Carson had posted again, this time with old family photos. "Look at her here. Always on the outside, always playing the victim. But who really manipulated who?" The photo he'd chosen showed Christmas 3 years ago. I was standing apart from the group, looking down. What he didn't show was what happened just before, how he'd accidentally spilled wine on my only nice dress. I took one last look around the study, at the life grandfather had lived and the secrets he'd kept. On his desk sat a framed photo I'd never noticed before. My mother as a teenager, laughing at something off camera. She looked happy, free, unbroken. My phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. "They're planning something. Be careful." I smiled, patting the folder in my bag. "I'm always careful," I texted back. Walking out of the house, I noticed dark clouds gathering again. A storm was coming, in more ways than one. Let them plot and plan. Let them rage on social media and make threats. I had the truth now, in black and white. And truth, I was learning, was the most powerful weapon of all. The suspension letters arrived on a Tuesday morning. I didn't have to be there to witness it, but Zoe texted me a play-by-play. "Dad just got the certified mail. His hands are shaking. Mom's crying in the kitchen." Another text. "Carson threw a vase through the window. The neighbors called the police." I sat in Mary's office, watching her read through the trust administrator's final decision. Her expression remained neutral, but I caught the slight lift at the corner of her mouth. "It's done," she said, setting down the papers. The evidence was overwhelming. Their inheritances are permanently revoked. All of it? Properties, investments, vehicles, everything specified in the will. She adjusted her glasses. "The bank accounts are frozen pending investigation of the financial documents you found." My phone buzzed again. "Zoe, they're being locked out of the country club accounts. Dad looks like he's about to explode." "What about Zoe's portion?" I asked. "Unaffected. She wasn't involved in the defamation." Mary paused. "She's been reaching out to you?" "She's different from them. Trapped, maybe." A commotion in the hallway interrupted us. The door burst open, and Aunt Laura stormed in, mascara streaking down her face. "You vindictive little witch," she screamed. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Mary stood. "Mrs. Kennedy, this is a private office. Security has been called." "Our credit cards are frozen," Laura's voice cracked. "The club membership, the house payments, everything. The consequences of your actions are clearly outlined in the trust conditions," Mary said coldly. "You were warned." "Actions? We gave her everything. We took her in when no one else would." "You made me sleep in a laundry room," I said quietly. "You lost every photo I had of my mother. You told people I was mentally unstable when I tried to speak up. We should have sent you to foster care, Laura spat. You ungrateful. Is that what you want on social media too? I interrupted, holding up my phone. Another recording to add to the pile? She fell silent, finally noticing my phone's camera pointed at her. Security arrived, gently but firmly escorting her out. Her sobs echoed down the hallway. My phone kept buzzing, news alerts, messages, social media notifications. Carson's meltdown had gone viral, with people digging up his old posts about luxury cars and private jets, contrasting them with his new claims of victimhood. There's something else, Mary said once calm returned. Ross's business partners are distancing themselves. The financial documents you found, they're asking questions. A text from an unknown number. This is Marcus from the Daily Tribune. We're running a story on the Kennedy family dispute. Would you care to comment? Delete. Another from Zoe. Can we meet? Please? There's more you should know. I agreed to meet her at a small cafe across town. She was already there when I arrived, fidgeting with a coffee cup. They're falling apart, she said without preamble. Dad's business partners are calling emergency meetings. Mom hasn't stopped crying. Carson, she paused. Carson's threatening to reveal family secrets. Let him, I replied. The truth is already out. You don't understand. He's desperate. When Carson gets desperate, he gets dangerous. As if on cue, my phone lit up with his latest post. Time to tell the real story about dear cousin Penny, about her mother, about why her father really left. I felt my chest tighten. What is he talking about? Zoe looked down. There are things, rumors about your mom, about why she died. Dad and Mom, they've kept files. Files? Police reports, hospital records, things they were saving as insurance. She met my eyes. But they're lying, Penny. I found the real records. Your mom, it wasn't what they said. My hands gripped the table edge. Tell me. They covered it up, made it look like she was unstable, like your father left because of her. But I found letters. Your father didn't leave. They drove him away, threatened him. And your mom. What about my mom? She was going to expose them. Ross's business fraud, the tax evasion, all of it. The night she died. Zoe's voice dropped to a whisper. It wasn't an accident. The cafe seemed to spin around me. My phone buzzed again. Ross's number. Don't answer it, Zoe warned. He knows I'm meeting you. They'll do anything now to stop this from getting worse. I stared at the phone as it rang, thinking about my mother's smile in that photo, about grandfather's letter, about years of lies and manipulation. No, I said, standing up. Let them try. I'm not hiding anymore. The phone kept ringing as I walked out into the afternoon sun. Behind me, I heard Zoe call out, "Be careful!" But careful wasn't what I needed to be anymore. I needed to be ruthless, like them. It was time to end this. The knock on my apartment door came at 9:47 p.m. I knew it was Ross before I even looked through the peephole. His shadow loomed large in the hallway, shoulders squared like he was preparing for battle. I opened the door but left the security chain on. It's late. Let me in, Penny. We need to talk. His voice was controlled, but I could hear the strain beneath it. Like you let my father talk before you drove him away? His face hardened. Zoe's been filling your head with lies. No, I said, closing the door to remove the chain. You've been filling my head with lies my entire life. The truth is just finally catching up. He pushed past me into the apartment, then stopped short. Aunt Laura and Carson were already there, sitting stiffly on my couch. Mary sat in the armchair, a folder open on her lap. What is this? Ross demanded. An intervention, I said, closing the door. Please, sit down. You think this is a game? He spun to face me. We'll drag you through every court in the country. We'll ruin your name. Like you ruined my mother's? I pulled out my phone. pressed play. His own voice filled the room from a recording Zoe had found in his office. Sarah's becoming a problem. She's threatening to go to the SEC. Handle it. Ross went pale. Where did you get that? The same place I got these. I gestured to Mary, who began laying out documents on my coffee table. Bank statements, offshore accounts, letters with dates and signatures. You broke into my office, he sputtered. Actually, Zoe did. Turns out she's been collecting evidence for years, waiting for the right moment. Laura stood up, swaying slightly. Ross, what is she talking about? Sit down, Laura, Mary said firmly. You'll want to hear this. I picked up one of the documents. 3 days before my mother died, she sent these records to the SEC. They never arrived, but grandfather kept copies. You can't prove anything, Ross said, but his voice shook. The police might disagree. They're very interested in reopening my mother's case. Carson lunged forward, but Mary's sharp voice stopped him. I wouldn't. Everything's already been sent to the authorities. Anything you do now will only make it worse. You're bluffing, Laura whispered. I played another recording, this one from the funeral. Their threats, their admissions, their true faces exposed. That's just the beginning, I said. I have copies of everything. Tax fraud, insider trading, the real estate scams, even that little problem with the union pensions. Ross sank into a chair, his face ashen. What do you want? Want? I want my mother back. I want my father to know it's safe to come home. I want my childhood back. I leaned forward. But since I can't have any of that, I'll settle for watching you lose everything, just like you made me lose everything. We can make a deal, Ross tried. Money. I have money. I cut him off. I have the house. I have the truth. You have nothing left to offer me. Please, Laura sobbed. We're family. No, I said quietly. You made sure I knew I wasn't family. Every day, every year, you made it clear I was nothing to you. I was just a stray, remember? Carson stood up, fists clenched. You think you've won? You'll what? Mary interrupted. The IRS has already been notified. The SEC investigation begins tomorrow. The police are reopening Sarah's case with new evidence. She smiled coldly. Would you like to add witness intimidation to the list? The fight seemed to drain out of him. He slumped back onto the couch. Get out, I said softly. All of you. Go home, while you still have homes to go to. They left one by one, Laura crying, Carson seething, Ross looking suddenly old and broken. At the door, he turned back. You'll regret this, he said. But the words had no power anymore. No, I replied, I won't. After they were gone, Mary gathered her documents. The authorities will contact you tomorrow. Are you sure you want to go through with all of this? I looked around my small apartment, thinking of the family estate that was now mine, of the trust fund that gave me freedom, of my mother's vindication finally within reach. They thought money was power, I said, but the truth, that's real power. Let them rot. My phone buzzed, Zoe again. It's done. I sent everything to the newspapers. No turning back now. I smiled, remembering all the times they'd made me feel small, invisible, worthless, the stray they never thought would bite back. No, I texted back. No turning back. Outside, the city lights flickered like stars. Somewhere across town, the Kennedy family empire was crumbling. But here, in my tiny apartment, I felt larger than all of them combined. Let them remember this night. Let them remember the moment they realized the stray had become the wolf. The headlines exploded over the next week like fireworks. Local business empire faces federal investigation. Family fortune built on fraud. The Kennedy collapse. Cold case reopened. Was Sarah's death really an accident? I watched it unfold from my new condo across town, far from the chaos. Mary called with updates every few hours. Ross's partners are jumping ship, she reported. The company stock is in freefall. Laura's been spotted at the airport with 3 suitcases. And Carson? Deleted all his social media after the backlash. His Porsche dealership terminated his employment contract due to reputation concerns. I stood at my floor-to-ceiling windows watching the city below. My phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. Mom's gone to stay with her sister. Dad hasn't left his study in 2 days. Are you going to the house? The family estate. My estate now. I hadn't been back since finding grandfather's documents. Today, I texted back. The drive felt longer than usual. When I pulled up to the gates, a small group of reporters lingered outside. They rushed forward as I entered the security code. Miss Kennedy, any comment on the federal investigation? Is it true about your mother's case being reopened? What about the allegations of corporate fraud? I drove through without responding, the gates closing behind me. The house loomed ahead, silent and empty. Inside, everything was exactly as they'd left it. Family photos on the walls, carefully curated images of perfect happiness. I took them down one by one, placing them face down on the marble floor. Upstairs, I passed Carson's old room, now stripped bare. He'd taken what he could sell, left the rest. Laura's walk-in closet still held designer clothes with tags attached. Ross's study door was locked, but I had keys now. Inside, the room smelled of stale whiskey and desperation. Drawers hung open, papers scattered everywhere, signs of frantic searching before the investigators arrived. My phone rang, an unknown number. I answered cautiously. Penny? A man's voice, vaguely familiar. It's your father. My hand gripped the desk edge. Dad? I saw the news about Sarah, your mother, about everything. His voice cracked. They told me if I ever came back, they'd destroy her reputation completely, make it look like... I know, I said softly. I found the letters, the threats. I should have fought harder, should have taken you with me. Where are you? A pause. Canada, Vancouver, I've been following your life from afar, watching, wanting to reach out. Why didn't you? Fear, he admitted. Ross had powerful friends, but now they have nothing, I finished. We talked for an hour, about Mom, about the years we'd lost, about meeting someday, when the dust settled. After hanging up, I wandered through the house again. In the master bedroom, something caught my eye, a corner of paper sticking out behind an ornate mirror. I pulled it free carefully. A photograph, old and creased. My grandmother, who died before I was born, holding a toddler. Me. On the back, in faded ink. She'll be the strong one. My phone buzzed again. Mary. Police want to interview you about your mother's case. Also, Ross's company just filed for bankruptcy. Another text followed. The estate agent called, 3 offers on the house already. I looked around at the empty rooms, the hollow shell of power and pretense. All those years feeling small within these walls, and now they felt small to me. Sell it, I texted back. Donate everything inside except my mother's belongings. Everything? Let someone else fill it with actual family memories. I walked down to the laundry room, my old bedroom. The narrow cot was long gone, but I could still feel the humiliation, the cold nights, the tears. Zoe called as I was leaving. The police just left Dad's office. They took boxes of files. Are you okay? I asked. A long pause. No, but maybe that's good. Maybe we all needed everything to break apart. In my car, I took one last look at the house. Years of pain and pretense, wrapped in expensive stone and marble. My phone buzzed with another news alert. Ross Kennedy faces criminal charges. Empire's dark secrets exposed. I drove away as the sun set, casting long shadows across the manicured lawn. Let them write their headlines. Let them dissect the fall of the mighty Kennedy family. I had what I wanted: truth, justice, and the knowledge that somewhere my mother was finally at peace. The photograph sat on my passenger seat, my grandmother holding me, both of us smiling at some long-ago joke. She'll be the strong one. She was right. The last box from grandfather's house arrived on a crisp autumn morning. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, I found my mother's old journals. Her handwriting flowed across pages yellowed with time, telling stories I'd never known. My phone buzzed, Mary calling with updates. Ross took a plea deal, she said without preamble. In exchange for testimony about corporate fraud, he's facing 5 years minimum. And my mother's case? The investigation is proceeding. Laura's agreed to testify about what she knows. A pause. They found evidence of brake tampering. I closed my eyes, letting that sink in. Thank you, Mary, for everything. Your grandfather would be proud, she said softly, then hung up. I was reading through Mom's journals when someone knocked. Through the peephole, I saw a man with gray-streaked hair holding a small suitcase. Dad? I whispered, opening the door. He looked older than in the photos, lines etched deep around his eyes. Penny, his voice cracked. You look just like her. We sat in my living room, 2 decades of silence between us. He picked up one of Mom's journals. She wrote about you every day, I said. Even when things were bad. She never stopped loving you. I never stopped loving either of you. His hands shook. When I heard about the brake tampering, I should have known, should have fought harder. We can't change the past. No, he agreed, but we can honor her memory by telling the truth. My phone lit up with a news alert. Laura Kennedy agrees to testify in Sarah's death investigation. They're all falling apart, Dad said, reading over my shoulder. They were always falling apart. They just had money to hide it. A text from Zoe appeared. Can we talk? I'm downstairs. I looked at Dad. He nodded. Family is what we make it. Zoe stood in the lobby, clutching her purse. When she saw my father, her eyes widened. I'm sorry, she stammered. I can come back. Stay, I said. We're having coffee and truth. Upstairs, Zoe told us everything. How she'd suspected about Mom's death for years, gathering evidence in secret. How she'd waited for the right moment to help bring justice. I was a coward, she said. Like them. No, I replied. You were surviving. Like me. Dad reached for one of Mom's journals. Sarah would say there's no timeline on doing the right thing. Only the choice to do it when you can. My phone buzzed again. Carson had posted one final message before deleting his social media. The truth about family is that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. Money doesn't guarantee love. I learned too late. He's right, Zoe said quietly. About learning too late. I opened Mom's journal to a random page. My daughter will be stronger than their lies. She'll see through the walls they build. And when she does, she'll choose her own family. One built on truth instead of power. Dad wiped his eyes. She always could see right through people. I have something for you both, I said, retrieving 2 envelopes. Inside each was a check, portions of the trust fund. Mom would want you to have fresh starts. Zoe tried to refuse, but I stopped her. Use it for college, away from here. Build the life you actually want. She hugged me, really hugged me, for the first time. Thank you. Dad stared at his check. Penny, I can't. Buy a house in Vancouver, I said. With room for visitors. I hear it's beautiful there. A final text came through from Mary. Ross's sentencing tomorrow. Laura's plea deal includes full disclosure about Sarah. Justice is coming. I looked at my father, reading Mom's words with tears in his eyes. At Zoe, finally free from the weight of family expectations. At the journals scattered around us, full of love and hope and truth. My phone rang, a local youth shelter where I'd started volunteering. We have a new arrival, the director said. Teenager. Family threw her out. Could use a friendly face. I'll be right there, I said, standing. Where are you going? Dad asked. To help someone who feels forgotten. I picked up my keys. That's what Mom would do. He smiled, really smiled, for the first time. Yes, yes, she would. I left them there, surrounded by Mom's journals, building bridges across the years we'd lost. Outside, the autumn air felt clean, new. My phone was quiet. No more alerts about the family's collapse, no more threats or pleas. Just a message from the shelter. She says her name is Grace. She needs someone to listen. I drove toward the shelter, thinking of Mom's words. Choose your own family. Build it on truth. That's exactly what I plan to do. Let them forget me. I remember everything, and I'll use those memories to help others remember they're not alone. That's the strongest revenge of all,